There's a door most people spend their entire lives avoiding, not because they don't see it, but because somewhere deep in their subconscious, they know that once it opens, everything changes. What's behind that door isn't a monster. It's not a villain. It's something far more terrifying. It's the truth about how your mind has been shaped, molded, and controlled without you ever realizing it. You like to believe you're free, that your thoughts are your own, that your desires, your beliefs, your choices, they all belong to you. But what if I told you that the most successful form of manipulation is not the kind that forces you into submission? It's the kind that makes you think you chose it, the kind that builds a cage so comfortable you never even think to look for the bars. Today, I'm going to show you 5 secrets of manipulation. Not the surface-level tricks you read about in self-help books. Not the obvious games played by salesmen or toxic partners. I'm talking about the invisible architecture of control, the mechanisms that have been running in the background of your entire life, shaping who you are, what you want, and who you trust. But here's the warning. Once you see these secrets, you can never unsee them. You'll start noticing the patterns everywhere. In your relationships, in the media you consume, in the conversations you have, even in the voice inside your own head. And that awareness comes with a cost. Because to see manipulation clearly means you must also see how deeply you've been manipulated. How much of what you call yourself was actually designed by someone else. So if you're comfortable in your illusions, if you prefer the safety of ignorance, this is your chance to leave. But if you're ready to step through that door, if you're willing to trade comfort for clarity, then stay with me. Because by the end of this, you won't just understand manipulation, you'll see the invisible strings attached to everyone around you, including yourself. The question is, are you ready to handle what comes next? Before you judge the manipulators, you must understand the craft they've already used on you. Let's start with the comfortable lie you've been telling yourself, that you're in control, that when you make a decision, it's yours, that your preferences, your values, your goals, they all emerged organically from within you. This is the story we all tell ourselves because the alternative is too disturbing to accept. But consider this. Why do you want what you want? Why do you value what you value? If I asked you to trace the origin of your deepest desires, could you? Or would you find that they were planted there long ago by forces you never questioned? Most people think manipulation is dramatic. They imagine it as coercion, threats, obvious deception. They think it happens in toxic relationships or boardrooms filled with corporate sharks, and sure, those forms exist. But they're amateur hour compared to the real thing. The real manipulation doesn't need to force you. It simply shapes the terrain of your thoughts so that all roads lead where the manipulator wants you to go. You don't choose what you want. You're conditioned to want what benefits someone else's agenda. The foods you crave, the lifestyles you aspire to, the relationships you pursue, even the version of success you're chasing. How much of that is authentically yours? And how much was programmed into you by 1,000 invisible influences before you were old enough to question them? Advertising didn't just sell you products. It sold you an identity. Social media didn't just connect you. It conditioned you to seek validation in metrics. Your education didn't just teach you facts. It taught you what to value, what to question, and what to accept without thinking. The first secret of manipulation is this. Control doesn't begin with your choices, it begins with the creation of your desires. And the most terrifying part? You'll defend those desires as if they were your own. You'll fight for beliefs that were handed to you. You'll sacrifice for dreams that were designed by someone else. And it all begins with the oldest trick in human history. Control not through power but through perception. Here's the first secret. Master manipulators don't oppose you. They become you. Or more precisely, they become the version of yourself you most want to see. This is the mirror technique, and it's more powerful than any argument, any threat, any display of dominance. Think about the people you trust most in your life. What made you trust them? Chances are at some point early in your relationship, you felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity, a comfort, a feeling that this person just gets you. But what you experienced wasn't magic, it was engineering. The manipulator studies you, your speech patterns, your body language, your values, your insecurities, and then, like a skilled actor, they mirror it all back to you. They match your energy. They adopt your phrases. They nod at the exact moments you need validation. They laugh when you laugh, pause when you pause, mirror your posture without you noticing. And slowly your brain begins to categorize them as safe, as one of us. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't fall in love with others. They fall in love with themselves, reflected back. When someone mirrors you perfectly, they create the illusion of perfect understanding. And that illusion is intoxicating. It bypasses your rational defenses entirely because it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like connection. This is why charismatic leaders are so dangerous. This is why certain people can walk into any room and make everyone feel like they're the most interesting person there. It's not genuine empathy. It's weaponized empathy. They've learned that the fastest way to control someone is not to dominate them. It's to make them feel seen, understood, special. And once they've built that foundation of trust, once you've categorized them as safe, they can begin the real work. Because now you're not just listening to them. You're listening to the version of yourself they've constructed. And that version will lead you exactly where they want you to go. But reflection is only the surface. The deeper control happens when they start rewriting the story inside your mind. The second secret is darker, more insidious. Master manipulators don't tell you what to think. They make you arrive at their conclusion yourself. This is narrative possession, the art of hijacking your inner story until you become the author of your own manipulation. Here's how it works. Instead of stating their agenda directly, they plant seeds. They frame questions in ways that lead to only one logical answer. They create emotional associations that bypass your critical thinking. They use if-then constructions that make their desired outcome seem like inevitable wisdom. If you really cared about this, then you would. If you were truly strong, then you wouldn't. They never command. They guide. They suggest. They lead you down a path of breadcrumbs, each one feeling like your own discovery, until you arrive at the exact belief they wanted you to hold. And because you've figured it out yourself, you'll defend it more fiercely than any idea someone simply told you. This is why cult leaders are so effective. They don't brainwash through force. They create environments where the only logical conclusion is devotion. This is why propaganda works. It doesn't tell you what to believe. It constructs a narrative where only one belief makes sense. Think about your own life. How many of your firmly held convictions did you actually reason through independently? And how many were absorbed from the narratives around you? Family, culture, media, education, until they felt like your own thoughts. The manipulator becomes the narrator of your internal dialogue. They don't change your mind. They change the story your mind tells itself. They reframe your past, redefine your present, and redirect your future. And the most beautiful part from their perspective is that you'll thank them for it. You'll feel grateful for the clarity they provided. You'll credit them with helping you see the truth. By the time you realize what happened, you've spent months or years defending the very person who possessed your narrative. You've become their most loyal advocate, not because they forced you, but because they made you believe it was always your idea. But not all manipulation comes from others. Sometimes it's your own mind keeping you enslaved. Now we arrive at the most uncomfortable truth. You don't need an external manipulator. You're already doing it to yourself. This is the third secret, and it's the one that will disturb you most. Your own mind is the most effective manipulator you'll ever encounter. Your brain wasn't designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you alive. And the way it does that is through a sophisticated system of rewards and punishments, dopamine hits for conformity, anxiety spikes for deviation, guilt for questioning the status quo. Your subconscious has spent your entire life conditioning you to stay small, stay safe, stay predictable. Every time you consider doing something bold, your mind floods you with worst-case scenarios. Every time you think about changing your life, it reminds you of everything you'll lose. Every time you start to question your beliefs, it triggers a defensive reaction: anger, dismissiveness, rationalization, anything to protect the existing framework. This is self-manipulation, and it's far more effective than anything an external manipulator could achieve, because you can't escape it. You can cut off a toxic person. You can leave a controlling environment, but you can't escape your own conditioning. Your comfort zone isn't comfortable because it's good for you. It's comfortable because your brain has learned to reward you for staying in it. Your limiting beliefs aren't true. They're just repeated so often that your mind treats them as fact. Your fear of judgment, your need for approval, your addiction to certainty, these aren't personality traits. They're control mechanisms your subconscious uses to keep you obedient. Here's the most chilling part. Your mind will defend this prison. It will create elaborate justifications for why you can't change, why you shouldn't try, why it's too late, too hard, too risky. It will disguise fear as wisdom, laziness as self-care, stagnation as stability. Most people never need an external manipulator because their conditioning runs deep enough to last a lifetime. They've internalized the voice of every authority figure, every critic, every disappointment, until that voice becomes their own. And they'll live their entire lives obeying it, never realizing they're following orders from a ghost. But for those who master manipulation, the game becomes different. They no longer defend, they design. The fourth secret reveals how power truly operates, through emotional architecture. Master manipulators don't just influence individuals, they engineer entire environments that dictate how people feel, and therefore, how they behave. Think about the last time you walked into a space and felt immediately unsettled or calm or inspired. That was an accident. Every detail, the lighting, the music, the spatial arrangement, the color palette, was designed to trigger specific emotional states. This is emotional architecture, and it's operating everywhere, all the time, mostly beneath your conscious awareness. Consider a cathedral, soaring ceilings that make you feel small, reverent, dim lighting that encourages introspection, acoustic design that makes every whisper feel sacred. Nothing about that space is random. It was built to manufacture awe, to trigger submission to something greater than yourself. Now consider modern applications. Casinos remove clocks and windows to distort your sense of time. Retail stores play slower music to make you browse longer. Social media platforms use infinite scroll to prevent natural stopping points. Political rallies are scheduled at specific times, with specific lighting, specific music, all calculated to amplify emotional intensity. The manipulator understands that you don't need to change minds if you can change moods. An angry crowd will believe things a calm crowd would question. An anxious person will seek certainty from whoever offers it. A lonely person will confuse attention with love. Control the emotional environment, and you control the range of available thoughts. This is why cults take people to remote locations, why dictators stage massive rallies, why abusers isolate their victims. They're not just controlling physical space, they're controlling emotional reality. And in that controlled environment, their narrative becomes the only one that makes sense. But here's where it gets truly sophisticated. The best emotional architects make you believe the feelings are yours. They create environments so subtle that you never notice the manipulation. You just know that you feel a certain way in their presence. Calm, energized, devoted, afraid. And you attribute those feelings to the person, not the architecture they've constructed around you. This is leadership at its highest and most dangerous form. The ability to shape not just what people think, but what they feel, without them ever knowing they're being shaped. It's influence that operates beneath language, beneath logic, directly on the nervous system itself. And that leads to the final secret. The one so dangerous, most manipulators never speak it aloud. The fifth and final secret is this. The ultimate form of manipulation is absence. True power isn't influence. It's gravity. It's becoming the center that others orbit without you ever having to pull them. Most people think power is loud, commanding, assertive. But that's the power of amateurs. Real power is quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It attracts it naturally. It doesn't push. It pulls. The master manipulator reaches a level where manipulation itself becomes obsolete. Because people manipulate themselves in anticipation of your approval. This is psychological gravity. You become the void that others fill with their projections, their fears, their desires. Your silence becomes more powerful than anyone else's speech. Your absence becomes more influential than anyone else's presence. People begin to move toward you not because you asked, but because not moving toward you feels like failure. Think about the people in your life who have this quality, the ones whose approval you seek without them ever asking for it, the ones whose disappointment you fear more than actual consequences, the ones who can control an entire room by simply choosing not to speak. They've mastered the invisible hand. This power comes from one fundamental principle: scarcity of validation. When you withhold approval, when you remain mysterious, when you refuse to be fully known, you create a vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. People will rush to fill it. They'll compete for your attention. They'll modify their behavior hoping to earn your acknowledgement. They'll attribute wisdom to your silence and meaning to your smallest gestures. You stop needing to manipulate because others do it for you. They become their own prison guards, policing their thoughts and actions based on what they imagine you might think. Your power becomes internalized in their minds, operating even when you're not there. This is dominion without force, influence without effort, the manipulator who has transcended manipulation itself. But every truth comes with a cost. Once you see the strings, you can never go back to believing in free will. Before we close, you need to understand something crucial. This knowledge is dangerous, not because of what others might do with it, but because of what it will do to you. Many people seek this understanding for protection. They've been betrayed, manipulated, wounded. They want to learn the game so they'll never be played again. It's a noble intention. But here's what they don't realize. The line between observer and participant is thinner than you think. Once you start seeing manipulation everywhere, something shifts inside you. You begin testing these principles. First, just to understand them. Then to defend yourself. Then, almost imperceptibly, because you can. Because it's effective. Because it's intoxicating to finally feel like you're the one pulling strings instead of dangling from them. The student of manipulation often becomes the thing they once feared. Not through malice, but through a slow erosion of boundaries. You tell yourself you're just protecting yourself. You tell yourself they deserve it. You tell yourself it's not really manipulation if you're doing it for good reasons. This knowledge will change you. It will make you cynical. It will make you calculating. It will make you question every genuine moment, wondering if even that is engineered. Some people who learn these secrets become powerful. Others become paranoid. Many become both. So before you wield these secrets, ask yourself, are you studying manipulation to free yourself from it? Or are you just learning to switch sides? Are you the player now, or still the pawn? But perhaps there's a third option. Perhaps the point isn't to avoid manipulation or become a manipulator. Perhaps the point is to become conscious. To step into the role of the architect, not of others, but of yourself. The architect doesn't deny that influence exists. They simply stop being unconscious of it. They see the emotional architecture around them and choose whether to enter. They recognize when they're being mirrored and decide whether to trust. They notice their own self-manipulation and question whether it serves them. The architect understands that freedom isn't the absence of influence. Freedom is awareness of influence and the conscious choice of which influence is to accept. You can't escape manipulation. It's woven into the fabric of human interaction, into language itself, into the structure of society. But you can choose to be aware. And awareness changes everything. When you see the patterns, you're no longer unconsciously controlled by them. When you understand the techniques, you can spot them in real time. When you recognize your own conditioning, you can choose to rewrite it. You become the author of your own narrative, instead of a character in someone else's story. This is the true power these secrets offer. Not dominion over others, but sovereignty over yourself. The ability to move through the world with your eyes open, to form relationships with clarity instead of projection, to make choices based on authentic values rather than conditioned reflexes. You've now seen behind the curtain. You've glimpsed the machinery that runs beneath the surface of human interaction. The forbidden door is open. The question is, will you close it again and return to comfortable ignorance? Or will you step through and accept the burden of awareness? The choice, for perhaps the first time in your life, is genuinely yours.